Hey, it's Saturday and it's Rob. What up? So sometimes the person from our past, us, can teach us something that we need to know now in the present. And I just kind of got a major lesson for myself, two major lessons actually, all within like the span of a couple of minutes. So these live videos that I do, a lot of times I'm just doing it because I got a thought and I don't want to forget it. You know what I mean? If people see it, fantastic. And if people don't see it, fantastic. Well, a couple years ago, I had posted a video about, as teachers, how we need to pay attention to our students, especially if it comes to mental health kind of stuff. And then that got me thinking about how, you know what, it's not just about teachers as students, but for us as people in general. If you have a friend or a loved one who's going through something, pay attention to it. And the difficult piece that we have is trying to identify where we fit in everything, how we can be a support to other people. They may or may not want the support. But it kind of got me thinking of, it's not just limited to being in a job or in a classroom, but, being in this world too, being there for each other, for people. And sometimes being there for people means just not being there. It means giving them their space. And I just had that thought of like, oh yeah, it's kind of like former self. But then the other piece, and this really shook me up quite a bit. So about 8 years ago now, it was 8 years ago, it was back in 2017. I posted a video because that day I had actually found out about, or had been reminded that my friend's dad, our neighbor, Mike, had ALS. And sadly, he has since passed since that video was created. And for those of you who may not know, my mother had ALS also. So to have people living next door to each other who both had ALS is kind of freaky, to be honest with you. But in that video, I'm talking about how, we need to honor life, respect life, no matter what our challenges, because people with ALS many times have this greater outlook on life where they feel like blessed beyond all blessings. I mean, like my mom was the same way. Lou Gehrig said the same thing. He's like, I'm the luckiest man in the world. And his body was dying on him. I could see it in Mike's eyes. Anybody who I've met, they've somehow just had this like aura about them being like, it's this connection just supersedes the body that's failing them. But what really kind of knocked me back when I was watching this today was that was right when Sev and I were getting divorced. I mean, I had just moved down to Florida. We had just moved down to Florida a few months before. And so within the course of a few months, our 16 years of being together fell apart. Obviously it was falling apart before that. It doesn't just fall apart in one fell swoop in a day. But I'm kind of watching my younger self going, shit, well, first off, I looked pretty damn young. I was like, wow, okay, 8 years has an effect. But the other part was, it was the fact that I was kind of giving this advice in a moment of clarity when my world was in total chaos, like absolute and total chaos. But it was great to hear now. You know what I mean? Because even still to this day, my life is hugely different than it was 8 years ago. Shit, man, it's wildly different than it was 2 years ago, even 1 year ago, because that's life. Life changes. There's nothing we can't change. The fact that life is going to change. That's a beautiful piece of it. That's why we are here, to grow and to change and continue and to move forward. But when we hold on to something that is going to drag us down, or when we hold on to something that no longer exists, or that we hold on to the negative aspect, to the anchor of the boat, okay? There's something about the anchor. The anchor's underwater. You can't breathe if you hold on to the anchor. But the anchor has a job, okay? The anchor keeps you in place for the time that you need to be in place. When you anchor your boat, it's because that general area in which you're going to be is where you want to stay. Now think about an anchor is a long chain, okay? So a boat will drift around the circumference or at least around that pivot point of the anchor. And sometimes it'll even drag the anchor a little bit too, depending on how much wind and tide and whatnot is pushing the boat. It might even drag this anchor across the seabed floor because maybe the anchor's not sitting there, but it's at least keeping us from drifting away from where we want to be in the general area. But essentially, eventually, the anchor's got to come up. You got to let loose the anchor. And when you let loose the anchors, because you are ready to sail forward or motor forward or either get back to port or go to a new port, go someplace else, right? But no matter where you go, if you're going back to where you came from or if you're going someplace new, you're taking with you the experiences of before setting anchor, during setting anchor, and after setting anchor. And that's our lives. There's points that anchor us down, and they keep us there so we can learn something from it. And being anchored down, we're learning something from being in that time at that point. But it doesn't do us any good to learn it and stay there. Okay, you got to drag that anchor up. And that's hard because sometimes, the anchor, once you pull that anchor up, it means you got to go forward again. So either going back to where you were or going someplace new, and you don't know what awaits you ahead. But the thing is, you've learned something from being in that moment. It's going well, Dallas. How you doing, brother? Like tonight, we got a gig. I got to leave in like 10, 15 minutes to go. We're playing a gig up at the American Legion in Tampa. And, I'm looking forward to it. It's not the big clubs that we used to play back north. It's not even the same. It's not even the bars we played on here are different from each other altogether. But I get to go and play music for a night, and I can't not see that as a beautiful opportunity. I've played music every night this week. It's been wonderful. One way, shape, form, or another. Some kind of music happening. It's a beautiful gift that I hold on to, and it keeps me anchored down in that moment. And when that moment's done, and I pull that anchor up, I can leave and go forward and see what comes next. But you can't do that if you keep yourself emotionally stuck in a spot. And I do that a lot. It's a lot of work to get out of that spot. This isn't like, oh, hey, everybody, I never get stuck, and you're going to learn how to not get stuck because I don't get bullshit, all right? There are times when that couch feels more comfortable than being in my own skin. That's the truth. However, what feels even better is when you get yourself back up again and you take a step forward and you do one thing. I haven't read Atomic Habits, but from what I understand, 1% better each day is something better than the day before, right? So whether it's picking up something, cleaning up something, doing one positive thing in the day that can change your world and change things around you. That's what we have to look for. And if a person with ALS can find the beauty in their day, if a person we all have a death sentence. As soon as you're born, you got a death sentence. Sorry. Because, as I said in that video, learn from the movie Young at Heart, nobody gets out of here alive. In fact, that's not a new thought. People have been saying that shit for a long ass time. Pretty sure Jim Morrison said it, and before him, a lot of other people too. It's just a fact of life. That's a fact of life. But what are you going to do with it from the time you're born to the time you go? That's your story right there. And that story is not always going to be sunshine, rainbows, moonbeams, and happiness, but it's going to be something. And all depends on what you do with it. You can feel down, and sometimes you just got to pick yourself back up. In fact, every time. And sometimes it's harder. Sometimes you don't feel like getting up. Sometimes it hurts to get back up. Physically, too. Sometimes, I get down on the floor and I can't get back up. I'm like, damn, I got old real quick. Or sometimes just emotionally. You don't feel like getting up. Get up. Find something. Give yourself something. Even if it's a glass of water. Whatever it may be. Because if my punk ass from 8 years ago, who was going through a divorce and had no clue what the hell the future held for him, could have some kind of a positive outlook on life, knowing that he was crumbling on the inside, then my old ass now can do the same thing, and so can you. Might not be that easy. It's never easy. In fact, it's not easy. But that's what makes it worth it sometimes. You just got to do the hard shit to get through the shit so you can have something better up ahead. All right. Saturday. I hope whatever you do, that you do it well. Whether it's hanging out, reading a book, or going to see a live band at the American Legion up in Tampa, North Avery. Come on. Come up to North Melbourne. It's 3818 West Vista Bay Boulevard or something like that. American Legion Post 139. Come on up. Come do something. Hang out. Come see some music. You never know what may happen. You might enjoy yourself. You might dance a little bit. You might meet a friend. Or you might just get the hell out of the house. For now, know that you're loved. All right? Peace out. Later.